Our next researcher is another physician who we're pleased to have worked closely with over the years. Dr. Leanne Ward is Tier 1 Research Chair in Pediatric Bone Disorders, Professor of Pediatrics at University of Ottawa, the Medical Director of the CHEO Genetic and Metabolic Bone Disease Clinic, the Scientific Director at the Ottawa Pediatric Bone Health Research Group, and pediatric endocrinologist in the Division of Endocrinology and Metabolism of Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario. Dr. Ward, thanks so much for joining us tonight. There's been a lot of research into DMD that has resulted in quite a few treatments being approved in other jurisdictions. So what direction do you hope to see for future Duchenne research as Canadians begin getting access to disease-targeted treatments?
Well, as others have said, I really want to see that individuals and families living with Duchenne have options. I think that we need a landscape where there are multiple therapies that are ideally tailored to a given individual and their needs and where they're at in their course in the disease. And so that would be my overarching goal. And then I would also hope that we would have a therapeutic landscape where there's minimal side effects. Right now we have glucocorticoids, and that's my area of interest. And of course, they do help individuals with Duchenne, but they have considerable side effects. And so my hope as we look into the future is that we have a landscape where the effective therapies have fewer side effects than we're managing at the moment with glucocorticoid therapy.
That's great. Now, I asked Dr. Rudnicki at the start about what he foresees in the next 30 years of research. So what excites you about the upcoming research, and what do you think it will look like in the next, say, 5 years in DMD?
Well, I think, there's obviously a lot of attention to gene therapy, and I think that we look forward to seeing that come to Canada and understand how we can weave that into care. And then there's other disease modifying therapies that are being adjudicated for their ability to come into the country as well. And then ultimately, I think we are looking at combinatorial therapy in order to attack the disease from different angles. And I think in the next 3 decades, hopefully there'll be one day where we don't have to ameliorate the disease with multiple therapies, that there will be a single therapy that will take care of the condition from all different therapeutic aspects.
Fingers and toes are crossed. So we're really excited to hear you about your current research. So I'll hand it over to you to present that.
Well, thank you very much. I am a clinician, so I'm going to be speaking from the perspective of an individual who takes care of boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And as I mentioned in the answers to your questions, Judy, I'm interested in advancing endocrine and bone health care in adults with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I'm a pediatrician, but I hand off the care to the adults, and then there's a lot of uncertainty about how the adults with Duchenne are making out from an endocrine and bone health perspective. So this is one of the aspects of our research program. We have a number of different projects, but I want to highlight this one in particular because it's very near and dear to my heart that we think about the endocrine and bone health care in these individuals, not just in pediatrics, but in the adult setting as well. So just to remind everyone what the endocrine and bone health issues are in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, we know that dystrophinopathy can cause bone fragility due to weakening of the bones known as osteoporosis, and short stature is also part of the condition. And then glucocorticoids, also known as steroids, prednisone, deflazacort, others, these can exacerbate the bone fragility. They can amplify the short stature and also cause delayed puberty, something called adrenal insufficiency, and pose challenges for weight management. And I don't have time to talk about all those complications, but just to put it in perspective for you here, this is a young individual with Duchenne who has a fracture of the largest bone in the body, the femur, and you can imagine that this can cause premature loss of ambulation, which is devastating to families and is associated with pain and the need for surgery and caregiver burden. And then on the right, we have collapse of the bones in the back called the vertebrae because of thinning of the bones, osteoporosis, and this can interfere with the ability to take nice deep breaths and also is associated with chronic pain. So just one example of the complications of the condition on the left and the steroids on the right that is the focus of our work. So endocrine and bone issues in Duchenne are serious indeed. They can cause fat embolism syndrome, which is a cause of premature mortality after a femur fracture. Adrenal crisis can occur after a femur fracture and lead to premature mortality. And there are other causes of adrenal crises as well. We know that fractures and overweight can diminish physical function. And then there's the psychosocial burden of these endocrine and bone health issues. The individuals on steroids can look very young for their age, and they can have, as I said, premature loss of ambulation and additional burden from all of the medical visits that they need to undertake. So in youth with DMD, we do have care pathways to help mitigate the side effects of glucocorticoids. And these are published, and we're spending a lot of time getting those messages out. But we do have some care pathways. We also have a lot of work to do to refine those care pathways, but they exist. In adults with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, there are no defined care pathways for endocrine and bone health management. So we know very little about their statuses with respect to endocrine and bone health. We don't know very much in adults with Duchenne about the sensitive psychosocial endocrine issues like sexuality and intimacy and fertility. And there's a paucity of data about how men experience their transition of care for endocrine and bone health from the pediatric to the adult clinical care setting. So we want to better understand the positive aspects of those transitions from pediatric to adult care, the challenges, and overall better understand what we need to improve that transition experience. So the funding we have received from Defeat Duchenne Canada in partnership with Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy is to train clinical fellows who also do research with me in the care of individuals with Duchenne muscular dystrophy for their endocrine and bone health aspects, and we also do research together. So the funding that we have specifically received is to Dr. Rana Haloon, who's a pediatric endocrinology osteology fellow working with me, and she's the primary on the project that I'll briefly tell you about. And then Doctors El Shamri and Fung are also endocrinologists dedicated to individuals with Duchenne from a clinical care and research perspective who will be supporting this project. So we're undertaking a cross-sectional study of adults with Duchenne who are graduates of pediatric endocrinology osteology clinics and graduates of neuromuscular clinics, and they're now in the adult milieu for their care, and we want to better understand where they're at in terms of their bone health, their adrenal insufficiency, their weight challenges, how their short stature has impacted their lives, and we want to better understand how they're getting on and feeling about their sexuality and fertility. So we will be looking at their current health status. We will be looking at how they experience their transition from pediatric to adult care. We'll be looking at how they're managed on the adult side from an endocrine and bone health perspective, and their overall satisfaction with their journey from pediatric to adult care and with their endocrine and bone health statuses as adults. We'll be using state-of-the-art assessment tools at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, where the adults will come. They will come for us to see us for a day, and we will engage with them for the research study. And we really look forward to that because, as I said, many of them will be graduates of my clinic, and so it'll be nice to see these adults after having not seen them for a number of years. And at CHEO, we have state-of-the-art imaging technology such as HRPQCT and other methods to really deeply phenotype the individuals in terms of their endocrine and bone health status. And overall, we hope to deepen our understanding of where these men are at in terms of their endocrine and bone health so that we can take that information and build the clinical care pathways that are so desperately needed, and also understand where we need to improve the care right here in Ottawa and across the country. The fellows have a research team that backs them and supports them from a statistical analysis perspective and a database management perspective, and we basically are behind the fellows to make this project successful. And again, we're so very grateful to Defeat Duchenne Canada for their support in partnership with Parent Project Muscular Dystrophy, and again, just really appreciate the ability to move this project forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity to tell you about this evening.